eyes are upside down when all it's seeing shut off drown. Hey yeah, little demon, open up your bag of tricks.
The 80s were loud. We had FM radio, cassette decks, and bands like Van Halen, Bon Jovi, and Guns N' Roses. But right under their spotlight were groups like Triumph, Kix, and Hanoi Rocks, bands that had everything but didn't get their spotlight. Here are 15 underrated 80s rock bands you forgot existed but cranked loud anyway. Starting with number 15, Zebra. You remember Who's Behind the Door? That spacey, haunting track that somehow still hit like Zeppelin? That was Zebra. They dropped their self-titled debut in 1983, and for a minute, they looked ready for the top level. They had Randy Jackson's amazing falsetto, tight musicianship, and enough mystique to sell out clubs. And their debut went gold, which is a rare feat for a band with zero mainstream backing. But Atlantic didn't know what to do with them. They were not glam enough for MTV and not hard enough for metalheads. The result is that they got lost in the noise. But it's not like their career ended. Zebra still tours to this day, and honestly, they seem tighter than ever. But if you weren't watching closely in the early 80s, you probably missed them. Or maybe you just forgot. And speaking of forgotten, the next band had the swagger, the hair, and the danger. Number 14, Hanoi Rocks. Before Motley Crue popularized eyeliner, Hanoi Rocks was doing it with way more attitude. These Finnish rockers had punk grit, glam flair, and a live wire energy that made LA bands look like they were playing dress up. Their 1983 album, Two Steps from the Move, was the closest they got to breaking through in the US, thanks to songs like Boulevard of Broken Dreams and Up Around the Bend. Guns N' Roses openly cited them as a key influence. Slash even called them one of his favorite bands. But just as they were gaining steam, tragedy hit. Their drummer, Razzle, died in a car crash with Vince Neil behind the wheel. After that, the band never fully recovered. They reunited years later, but the magic was in that raw early run. Hanoi Rocks could have ruled the Sunset Strip, they just never made it out of Finland in time. Number 13, Fastway. If you take fast Eddie Clarke from Motorhead, pair him with UFO's Jerry Shirley, and throw in a teenage Irish vocalist who sounds like a chainsaw with soul, you get Fastway. Their 1983 self-titled debut kicked off with Say What You Will, and that record caught some real radio heat. They toured hard and made a splash with the Trick or Treat soundtrack in '86, but never hit the top tier due to constant lineup changes, no real US label push, and that awkward middle ground. Yeah, that space where the band is too heavy for glam and not metal enough for thrash. Still, those early albums did major damage. If you grew up flipping through Hit Parader or catching late night MTV, you've definitely heard Fastway even if you didn't know it. Let's move to the West Coast next. Number 12, Y&T. Y&T wasn't just another Sunset Strip wannabe. These guys predated most of them and inspired plenty too. Their 1981 album, Earthshaker, was a blueprint for 80s hard rock with their huge riffs, catchy hooks, and their frontman Dave Meniketti's soulful vocals. They never became huge, even though tracks like Summertime Girls were MTV staples and they toured with Motley Crue, Ozzy, and AC/DC. Their problem was timing. Now, if Y&T was too early for glam, the next band was almost too perfect for it. Number 11, Kingdom Come. When Kingdom Come dropped their self-titled debut in '88, everyone, and I mean everyone, thought it was a lost Led Zeppelin album. Robert Plant even said the resemblance was a bit cheeky, but Kingdom Come didn't care. They opened for Scorpions on Monsters of Rock, charted strong, and looked set for a major run. But the Zeppelin comparisons turned toxic. Critics slammed them as clones, and fans moved on fast. The band fizzled out in the US after just a couple of years, but in Europe, they kept a low-key cult following ever since. Number 10, Tora Tora. Tora Tora blended bluesy southern rock with just enough sleaze to sneak into their hair metal scene. Their 1989 debut, Surprise Attack, had the radio hit Walk in Shoes, and it actually cracked the Billboard Top 50. But the timing couldn't have been worse. Their second album, Wild America, dropped in '92, right when grunge exploded. Suddenly, the long hair, bluesy swagger, and southern riffs didn't fit the new scene. Labels wanted flannel and angst, not Memphis soul. Atlantic Records pulled the plug, and just like that, Tora Tora disappeared from the spotlight. They reunited years later, dropped new music, and today they've got a cult following. Number 9, Sea Hags. Imagine Guns N' Roses were raised by pirates. That's the Sea Hags. Their 1989 self-titled debut was sleazy, messy, and totally magnetic. It was produced by Mike Clink. Yeah, the guy behind Appetite for Destruction. But here's the thing, the Sea Hags never got a real shot. The drug problems, constant lineup shakeups, and label drama tore them apart before they even got to tour properly. To top it all, their bassist, Chris Schlossart, tragically died in 1981, and the band dissolved not long after. Number 8, The Godfathers. The Godfathers came out of London looking like gangsters and sounding like a punch to the face. Their breakout album, Birth, School, Work, Death, dropped in 1988, and the title track hit US college radio like a hammer. The gritty guitars, biting lyrics, and the vocals sounded more like a threat than a melody. They weren't exactly hard rock, and they weren't quite punk, which made them a hard sell for labels trying to market them. But they had a cult following, especially for fans who like their rock with a sneer and a sense of doom. They're still out there, actually. They're touring, recording, and aging like whiskey-soaked vinyl. Now, let's head back to the desert. Number 7, Icon. Icon should have been huge. Their 1984 self-titled debut had everything. Twin guitars, soaring choruses, and a lead singer who could shred his vocal cords and still sound cool. Songs like On Your Feet and Rock On Through the Night had all the juice of a band destined for arenas. But Capitol Records didn't quite know how to market them. They were too polished for metal and too heavy for pop rock. Then they replaced their singer after their first album. Icon faded fast. But if you're lucky enough to see them live in '84 or '85, you know, they had the goods. Number 6, Kicks. If you only know Kicks from Don't Close Your Eyes, then you're missing the big picture. These guys were grinding it out in clubs for years before finally landing on MTV's radar. Their 1988 album, Blow My Fuse, was fun and loaded with amazing hooks. But Kicks was never trying to be pretty. They were a bar band at heart. They didn't fully break through because they arrived late to the glam party. And by the early 90s, the lights were already going out. Number 5, Rhino Bucket. If you ever wished AC/DC made more albums in the late 80s, Rhino Bucket is your answer. These guys came straight out of Van Nuys with music that made you know these guys didn't mess around. Their 1990 self-titled debut didn't pretend to be anything fancy. It was pure rock and roll with zero filter. Songs like One Night Stand and Ride the Rhino had that dirty, foot-stomping energy. In fact, they even toured with the Black Crowes and received a nod from Brian Johnson himself. but they were constantly dismissed as AC/DC clones, which, fair or not, cost them shelf space. At number 4, we have Fate. You've probably never heard Fate unless you were one of those guys scouring the import bin at Tower Records, but man, what a find. Tracks like Love on the Rocks and Fallen Angel could have killed on American radio if they'd ever made it here. But Fate never got the US release push. We can blame geography, label misfires, or just plain bad luck. Whatever the reason, they stayed a European secret. Still, collectors and die-hard melodic rock fans know Fate had the sound, the look, and the chops. They just never had the passport stamp. Number 3, Angel City. In Australia, they were just the Angels. In the US, to avoid confusion, they became Angel City. But no matter the name, these guys were dangerous. Think razor-edge guitar riffs, pub rock aggression, and lyrics that hit like brass knuckles. They cracked some attention in the States with Dark Room in 1980 and Night Attack in 1981, but it never translated into full-scale success. It was probably the wrong time or the wrong country, maybe, but Angel City should have been massive globally. Tracks like Marcel's and Take a Long Line still pop up in film soundtracks and biker playlists for a reason. This band didn't care about trends, they just wanted to play until your ears rang. Now, let's talk about a band that had the last true taste of LA grit before the grunge wave crashed. Number 2, Junkyard. Junkyard never quite fit in, but that's exactly why they ruled. Their 1989 self-titled debut had one of the greatest almost hits of the era, Hollywood. They had pedigree. I mean, the band members were from Minor Threat, Big Boys, and Broken Homes, and they weren't afraid to throw fists in the middle of a gig. Their sound was like AC/DC on a 3-day hangover. Geffen signed them hoping for the next Guns N' Roses, but what they got was something meaner and maybe a little too real. But now, we've made it to the top. Let's talk about a power trio from Canada that flirted with the big time, left their fingerprints all over rock radio, and still gets mistaken for Rush. But don't tell them that. Number 1, Triumph. Alright, you didn't forget Triumph exactly, but you probably forgot how damn good they were. Power trio? Check. Stadium anthems? Check. Guitar wizardry? Double check. Between 1979 and 1985, Triumph was dropping gold and platinum albums like Allied Forces and Thunder 7, with arena-sized hits like Fight the Good Fight and Lay It on the Line. The problem they had, however, was that they were always in Rush's shadow. I mean, they were both Canadian trios, but Triumph leaned more into hard rock theatrics. They never fully cracked US mainstream despite packing arenas. And by the late 80s, internal tensions and the changing scene pushed them into the Remember Those Guys category. And there you have it. 15 bands that maybe didn't make the cover of Rolling Stone, but they sure tore up your speakers. Some were one-album wonders, others were victims of bad timing, but all of them brought something unforgettable to that decade. So go ahead, dust off the record player, rebuild that mixtape, and blast these tracks like it's Friday night in '87. And hey, if I missed any of your favorites, drop it in the comments and let's build the ultimate underrated 80s rock playlist together.